Okay, now that we've had a quick look around, let's take a look at a few key MODO features and methodologies that you're going to need to know about and you're going to want to take advantage of. First of all, let's talk about navigation in the viewport. And you can see I'm in my model tab here, and this is kind of the default orientation for everything and setup for everything when you first fire up MODO. Okay, so just to have some geometry to look at, I'm going to quickly create a teapot primitive by right-clicking in the viewport. I'm going to go down here to primitive and select teapot. And there's our little teapot right there. And it's kind of small in the view, so I'm going to fit it to the view by hitting the A key, and that does the fit all. You can do Shift A and just fit selected if you want to as well. Okay, so now to rotate around in our viewport here, I'm just going to hold down the Alt key, and you can see that my icon changes to this little rotation icon. And if I just start left click and drag of my mouse, you can see that I rotate. Okay, so rotate around here. And MODO uses what's called a trackball rotation by default. And you can see that when you rotate, you can actually kind of get into these weird sort of banked positions for your geometry. And this can be a little hard to wrap your head around at first, especially if you're used to Max's rotation tool. But I actually like MODO's trackball rotation. And the way I think of it is that there's like a big sphere, an invisible sphere here in the scene, and I'm just kind of clicking on it and making it rotate around. And that's kind of a good way to visualize how that trackball is going to rotate things. Okay? And the other thing from a rotation standpoint is that you can hold down the Alt key and hit the middle mouse button. If you hold that down and drag left and right, you can bank things too. So if you get things that are kind of out of whack here and you want to level them out a little bit, you can just hold down the Alt key and bank them using the middle mouse button. Okay, if I hold down Shift Alt and drag around, I'm going to pan around the viewport. And if I just use my scroll wheel, I can zoom in and out with that. Okay. One of the other things to notice about the scroll wheel is that it zooms to wherever the cursor is. So if I put it right here at the tip of the spout, it'll zoom in on that. Zoom back out. Zoom in on that. Zoom in on that. Okay. Another cool shortcut to keep in mind is the G key, which will center on the cursor. And so if I just put my cursor over here and hit G, it'll pop the point that I was hovered over into the center of the viewport. Again, put it over here, hit G, pops it to the center. Hit A to fit. Okay, so back to this trackball situation here, this trackball rotation. Some people don't like this. And also, if you're coming from Max, you may not want to have to relearn a new navigational strategy in MODO. You may would rather just be able to use the same navigation setup that you have in Max. And MODO actually lets you set up MODO to be a little more Max-like when it comes to navigation. And the way you do that is just go to the System menu, go to Preferences, and the first thing we're going to do is shut off this trackball rotation so that the rotate performs just like it does in Max. So I'm just going to turn that off. And then the other thing we're going to do is go down here to Input and select Remapping. And then up here at the top where it says Mouse Input Presets, we're going to change that to 3ds Max. And it gives us a little warning here that says some of our keyboard shortcuts are going to be changed, and that's okay. So we'll just say OK. Close that, and now if I just hold down the Alt key and the middle mouse button, I can rotate around just like I do in Max. You notice that there's no trackball banking going on, stays level. And if I scroll wheel, I'll scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And if I just hold down the middle mouse button, I can pan around. So now my controls are set up just like they are in Max, and if I jump back and forth from Max to MODO, I don't have to remember to change the keys that I use to rotate and pan and so forth. But I don't have a problem with that, so I actually like MODO's setup and the trackball rotation, so I'm just going to go set that back to Preferences, turn on the default mouse input preset, and then go back to Display, OpenGL, and turn on trackball rotation. Okay, and I'm going to delete my teapot. The next thing we're going to look at is the work plane.